So this is my second speech for my class of Fundamentals in Human Communications at SLCC, and we were instructed to discuss whether or not it should be customary to tip on to-go or carry-out orders. So in this speech, I'm going to explain to y'all that it should be customary to tip due to the fact that, yes, we got used to it during the pandemic that just happened a few years ago. Also, the fact that it's still a service provided and the average tip rates that go into just going to a restaurant. So first I want to begin by saying that all the information that I am pulling is from the article that is posted on the pos.toasttab.com, and Toast is the system that companies and restaurants use to manage the billing and the food processing and the ordering of all the orders that come into the restaurant. So another thing that I want to go into is that due to the pandemic itself, we had a rise in just to-go and carry-out orders because everybody was quarantined for the longest time in what felt like an eternity. So while we weren't able to actually go out and enjoy a nice dinner, people would still order and have their due diligence and just kind of say to themselves, but they would go get the food and they would take it home and enjoy it in their comfortable place. However, that does mean that people still had to go out of their way to cook the meals, they still had to go out of their way to prep the meals, and they still had to go out of their ways to bag the meals. So therefore, that leads me to that it's still a service that's being provided to you. So even though, let's say, you're not going out and sitting in a booth enjoying a dinner and being waited on hand and foot, somebody's still taking the order, putting the order in, watching the food be prepped in the restaurant, watching the food be cooked, make sure that it's cooked on an orderly time, so that way by the time you get there, it's still good and it's still hot and fresh. So I believe we should tip due to the fact that it is a service that's being provided to you to make your life a little bit more comfortable. So let's say you're not feeling well, you don't have to go sit in a restaurant and wait for food. You can take that food home with you. That also being said, you should tip for the simple fact that being a service, and during the pandemic on the pos.toasttab.com, it states that the average tip rate is about 10 to 20%. So that's a good chunk of change per meal, and higher meals and even third-party meals such as DoorDash and Uber Eats and ASAP, all of those have higher tip rates such as 13 to 30%. So it all depends on one, how expensive the meal is, two, if you're using a third-party app such as DoorDash or Uber Eats, or whether or not you just feel generous and want to provide and tip a good amount. Now for my fourth point, I do want to bring up that in a restaurant there is a thing called tip share. As someone who's worked in a restaurant, it is a little annoying sometimes, but let's say I work to go. You give me $100 tip on one order and then somebody else has another order and they don't tip anything. Well, the problem is now I have to share that tip for both orders with the restaurant itself. So that goes to the cooks, that goes to the busboys, that goes to the line preps, all of those people. The thing is now I have to eat a chunk of my paycheck in order to help pay out in that tip share process. So that does become a little annoying in the fact that if somebody doesn't tip or if we don't make it customary to tip, now somebody else is eating it out of their paycheck and their wallet. So I do believe, yes, we should tip on the idea that it's, during the pandemic we got used to tipping higher rates, that it's still a service being provided to us, the idea of tip share, and just the US's common theme of we go out and we tip every time we have a meal. So we should tip whenever we order carry-out or to-go orders.